Are you ready for it? Are you sure? You sure you're ready for it? It is what Apple is calling their new design pattern, which is LiquidGlass. And this is a pretty interesting take on their already fluid design pattern. Let's dive in that today. So captured in that video, you would see what they're calling LiquidGlass and what has been shaping now Apple design. This is for their products across the board. We're thinking Apple, iPhone, iPads, iWatches, everything I. This new pattern is taking design into an entirely different level. Previously, I've done a video on material design and how that has shifted into a more expressive state. Check that video. I'll link it so you can access that. But this one is related to specific Apple products. We're going to talk about how this new design pattern has been embraced by Apple and what it's going to translate into as far as their products. Now, I'm just going to dive in. I have an iPad and I've been an Apple user for quite some time, especially when it comes to designing different products. And this one is pretty cool. So a few things to take note of. Remember iOS 7, where they had this more skeuomorphic style, where they were kind of being intentional about how that design was tied to the device. Well, when it comes to LiquidGlass, this one is way more intuitive. It's like the metaphor of glass. So when you actually look into it, it has these reflective properties that make it useful. You can see things with texture. You can see through it. They have this thing that allows passing of light. And that is very helpful in many cases. Well, when it comes to software and app design, this is supposed to be the way in which Apple is doing for their devices. So it has these more expressive ways, these new colors that you can see content, and the depth and thickness of some of the elements and the appearance. It has this sort of glass texture. Some people are saying, even though they're thicker, they're bold, they have this more liquidated version of it. There's this high sheen around the edges. So it's almost reflective of glass, hence the name. But it's done to kind of simplify the controls, the dynamic areas, and so much more. Now, when it comes to context, they have this context aware, this UI element, so that things are more reactionary to the context in which you use them. Here's an example. Let's say I'm waiting in line at the bank and I am on a call. Call is muted, but I get a text message that comes in and I need to respond right away. Well, the context that I'm using it in allow for me to respond to that text message while still being actively on the call and maybe swipe through notifications or whatnot. It makes sure that the context in which you're using it can be useful in the way in which you're using it. I know, crazy way to say that. Definitely one of the things to take note of. Some of the controls have been great. You're starting to see these sort of new screening tools, especially in the Messenger, where they can either give you main controls over your messaging and the control systems then is displayed, especially when it comes to FaceTime and other use in communication. It's also a little bit more fluid in terms of messaging to like add polls, votes, more emoticons. There's so much just happening. And I kind of like that. But then you have these contextual moments where you're starting to see that the designs are kind of matching hardware design. So the bezel and the curvature on the devices and on the iPads and stuff, they're starting to feel native to sort of these design elements. Most of the buttons, most of the styles are curved now, as well as the edges on the actual devices. And then you're going to start to see this more in-depth display of UI or contextual information. It's very similar to, if you think of vehicles that have touch displays, or they have the displays in the vehicle that kind of reveal itself toward the windshield, or they're like heads-up display. You're going to start seeing a lot of that. And if we think of things beyond just the personal computer or the cell phone, we're also going to start to see that come alive in the Meta Ray-Bans and the AR goggles and things of that nature, where some of that contextual pattern making will be reflective in the games and the experiences you have. There's a lot to digest here, and it's amazing how it's coming along. One thing that is bringing pause when I look at some of the systems already is the LiquidGlass pattern has become sort of almost challenging to read given some context. So depending on the styles of text and copy, if you're looking at something on the surface level and trying to adapt context or content beneath it, it may be hard or illegible to read when you start to stack things on top of each other, and that liquid kind of feel kind of takes away from legibility, readability, if you will, and scanning information quickly, because it can be a little intrusive, especially when it's very ornate and you have all of these elements competing for the attention that you're trying to give to one. I do see that being a challenge to work with, but I think in the context of each device, I think there may be some tweaking that has to happen to make it very, very useful across all of the devices to fit the content in which people are using within it. So it's going to be a challenge, but I think it'll be an exciting one, and I'm here for it. Now, one thing to note is the LiquidGlass thing is a metaphor for the glass itself. And most people just think it's some fancy name, but no, it's really tied to everything that they're trying to move towards when it comes to their design choices. There's a reactive component to the UI now. Responsiveness, more intuitive feedback, all of those things are now embedded and will be wrapped within this design pattern. And that's actually really good. It's like the evolution of a device responding to you and your motion and kind of what you're intending to do. That is the highlight of an interaction model, right? Giving tactile feedback or more a system aware feedback on the actual device and how you use it. It's these small things that I think are being intuitively added, but I think the way they show up in mobile devices can be elegant and present themselves in a really good way if done right. And then some other things, emotional cues will be highlighted, and then more of emotive framing. So for example, since we use our facial IDs and all this facial recognition components, but like the gestures in which your face kind of moves and interacts with the device and FaceTime, if there will be some feedback and stuff there. Now I have yet to test all of the components with it and all of the features, but I think it's a really good starting point. And they've seemed to embrace content first, and the layout and structure of things has been grouped very sequentially and orderly. And I think that's a really good take on it. The structure, the full shift to that is really, really cool. One of the things that really doesn't get talked about enough is their app icon style. And I see that as a really good changing point, especially when it comes to themes and wallpapers. In context, it's a good starting point for something. Without that context or without some basis for it, when you start to lose the ability to scan information or scan to see what things are identifiable initially, that can be a challenge. I'm hoping with the colors, and some other things that they've added, I think there's room for improvement. And I also see, again, spatial constraints when it comes to VR, when it comes to AR setups and environments. I think there could be some things there that we will see, but I'm excited for the next chapter of this. And I think the visual intent is there. So in conclusion, I really like this direction and what they're doing. I'm also curious if this is something that they're combating with Material's new expressive design pattern, because they released that not too long ago. And then right on the heels of that comes this new style of design. And both platforms or both organizations hadn't released anything in years. So I think it's really cool. And you'll start to see more in-depth based surfaces and controls and things come out of this Liquid design. And I'm just excited for it. So for those of you who are interested in trying to design for that new push, I would say take a look. I'll leave some links that you can access that information on your own and kind of see what that's like. But I also think it's really, really valuable for you to explore what they have to offer in the OS systems, in their development side of things. Check out the HIG and all of these areas to help you get really up to speed with it. Let me know if you want to do just some challenge or an experimental project. That way we can explore more with this Liquid-based design style, because it's new for me as well. And why not check it out? Let's do it. I want to thank you for stopping by, and feel free to let me know in the comments what you think. You think this LiquidGlass approach to design is moving things in a forward direction, or do you think it's just some haphazard way to compete with Material Design's expressive things happening over there? I'd love to understand what's going on. Feel free to like this video if you enjoyed it for some reason, whatever reason. I enjoy you, and share it with someone that you feel can get some benefits out of this or has an interest in design. And until then, like, share, and subscribe for more. As always, your life has color, so make sure to design it that way. And we will see you in the next one. Take care. The thickness and the depthness of this display, this liquid glass, can't even say that fast.